Okay, let's just jump right in. Have you ever used an AI tool, something like ChatGPT, and afterward you just felt, I don't know, a little bit dumber? Well, it turns out that feeling might not just be in your head. We are smack in the middle of this massive, global experiment on our own brains, and the first results are starting to trickle in.
And that brings us to the big question we're all kind of wrestling with. Is our smartest tool, this thing that's supposed to make us more creative, more productive, actually just making our brains lazy? It's a real concern. And now we're starting to get data that paints a much clearer and honestly kind of alarming picture.
Get this. A recent study from MIT dropped an absolute bombshell. 83% of people who used AI to help them write an essay couldn't accurately quote anything from the text they had literally just created. To put that in perspective, for people who wrote it themselves, that number was only 11%. The AI helped them get the words on the page, sure, but it seems like it completely bypassed their memory.
And this leads to a really powerful new idea from that same MIT research team. They're calling it an AI cognitive debt. And it's not just about what's happening while you're using the AI. It's about what lingers in your brain afterward.
So here's the kicker. The researchers found that even when they took the AI away from the students who'd been using it, their brains still showed weaker neural connectivity. It's like they'd built up a debt by not fully flexing their cognitive muscles. And that debt sticks around. Their brains had literally gotten used to not being switched on all the way.
So this whole cognitive debt thing, it raises a much bigger, more physical question. I mean, if we're not using certain parts of our brain, could they actually be atrophied? Like a muscle you just stop using?
This isn't some brand new fear that just popped up with AI. Years ago, a neuroscientist, Dr. Manfred Spitzer, he coined this term digital dementia. He was warning that our over-reliance on all digital tech could lead to a serious decline in how our brains work. It's that classic use it or lose it problem, but for, the most important organ we have.
And look, these aren't just abstract fears. The symptoms are things a lot of us are probably feeling. We're talking about real memory loss, finding it harder to do deep critical thinking, struggling with making decisions, and of course, that shrinking attention span we all joke about. Some studies are even pointing to issues with social and emotional skills, probably because we're staring at screens more than we're looking at each other.
This quote right here, it just nails the core of the problem. It's a process called cognitive offloading. Think about it. Instead of building a mental map of a city, you just offload it to your GPS. Instead of trying to recall a fact, you just offload it to Google. We're basically treating the internet like an external hard drive for our brains, and the one we have inside our heads might be losing its storage capacity.
Okay, but hold on. What if that's only half the story? What if instead of being a downgrade, AI is actually the key to a massive upgrade for our brains? Let's totally flip the script here and look at how this exact same technology could make us smarter, not dumber.
So let's just reframe this whole conversation. Instead of worrying about cognitive atrophy, let's talk about cognitive enhancement. Instead of dependency, what about a true symbiosis? We can shift from offloading our brains to actually augmenting our intelligence and move the whole story from digital dementia to something way more exciting: humanistic intelligence.
The vision here is huge. This idea of humanistic intelligence is where the lines between our bodies, our environment, and the digital world just blur. Your surroundings could literally become an extension of your own mind, all of it working together as one seamless organism, powered by AI.
And hey, this isn't some far-off science fiction. This is happening right now, with things called brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. We're talking about paralyzed patients learning to walk again by controlling robotic exoskeletons with their thoughts. A quadriplegic man literally drove a Formula One race car using just his mind. And we're even seeing mind-controlled video games being used to treat ADHD and depression. We are on the verge of being able to rewire our own brains. It's incredible.
So how does this even work? Well, one of the main techniques is called neurofeedback, and the concept is actually pretty simple. First, sensors measure your brain activity in real time. Then, a computer gives you instant feedback. Maybe a sound gets louder, or something on a screen changes color. And through that simple loop, your brain actually learns to control its own electrical patterns. You're basically training it to operate at peak performance.
Okay, so we've got these two totally opposite futures, right? The brain downgrade on one side and the superhuman upgrade on the other. And what this really shows us is that the tech itself isn't good or bad. It's neutral. The outcome? Well, that depends entirely on us. It's all about using AI, not being used by it.
So the answer isn't to just throw our hands up and ban AI. I mean, that's like trying to ban the printing press. No, the solution is that we have to be way more intentional about how we train our minds. I love this metaphor. We need to start thinking about a gym for the brain. We go to the gym to keep our bodies in shape. We need to do the same for our cognitive muscles.
So what does a workout at the brain gym even look like? Well, it can be really simple stuff. Practicing digital detoxes, just setting aside times or even entire rooms where there's no tech allowed. Getting up and moving. Physical exercise is a huge boost for the brain. And actively training your mind, whether that's with puzzles, reading a challenging book, or learning a new language. And maybe the most important one, use AI as a tool, not a crutch. Think through the problem yourself first, then bring in the AI to help you build on your own ideas.
But this isn't just about our individual habits. All these personal choices, they scale up. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle. What kind of society do we want to build around this tech? And what new rights do we need to protect?
This is where things get really, really serious. As this tech gets good enough to not just help us think, but to literally read and write to our brains, we are walking into a totally new world. That's why researchers and ethicists are pushing for a new category of human rights they're calling neural rights. The right to mental privacy, to protect your innermost thoughts from being sold or manipulated. The right to agency, to make sure your choices are actually your own.
So when it comes down to it, we are at a profound crossroads.